Hello, I'm Terry David Mulligan, and this is Mulligan Stew, the podcast, music, film, food, and wine. It's music today. Stephen Fearing is a friend of this show. I'm pleased to have him in my life and always look forward to talking to him about his solo work or his work with the fine band Blackie and the Rodeo Kings with Tom Wilson and Colin Linden. His new album came out Friday, November the 15th, and we are honored to have this interview and conversation about that album and Blackie and the Rodeo Kings and everything else that's going on in his life. The album is called The Unconquerable Past. Stephen has given us a quote. The album is a reflection of both where I am in my life and where we as a society and a planet are right now. Even within the recording industry, we are in such a period of transition. The past has so many good things to offer us that we are in a very real danger of throwing out the baby with the bathwater. We're going to try to fit in as many of the new songs as possible, including his co-write with his Belfast partner, Andy White, another one with his Blackie and the Rodeo Kings writing partner, singing partner, buddy, Tom Wilson. And we will touch on the new Blackie and the Rodeo Kings album, which comes out in February. It's going to be a very, very, very busy 2020 for all three artists, as they all have their own albums. They have their Blackie and the Rodeo King albums, and they are celebrating their 25th anniversary as a band. So enjoy this conversation, please, with Stephen Fearing and his album, The Unconquerable Past. Are you in sunny Victoria, by the way?
I am in sunny Victoria.
Oh, man, this is a beautiful day. What a great day. Before we, first of all, congratulations on new music, handing us new music and giving us new music and having another 2 years of playing new music for all of us. But let's go back one release. Yep. Every Soul's a Sailor. When you released it, as you always do, most artists who care, wanted it to have a great life, wanted the tunes to reach out and pull us all in. How did you like the journey?
It's been a really interesting. I've really enjoyed it. There's so many ways to answer that question. I'm going to focus on the playing it live portion of it has been immensely fun, and it's taken me to parts of the world that I hadn't been to before, and sort of helped me open up places that I hadn't played much or at all before. And it's taken me on a bit of a journey as a guitar player, because I forced myself to write songs that I could play in trio format, so electric as well as acoustic, and then of course I had to translate them into playing solo. And so it took me on a long journey, and I really enjoyed that. It's also, put me in people's grill in a way that, given what's going on in the world and the divisiveness that we're seeing everywhere post-election Canada, I got an early taste of that by singing that song "Blowhard Nation." I remember playing it at the Salmon Arm Blues and Roots Festival, and I didn't see it, but apparently a woman was escorted off the site yelling obscenities at me, because that's where we're at. So that song kind of got me into that space early.
On this very radio show, we had the pleasure of playing it first right here on Mulligan Stew. Now, is there a spillover? Because I'm looking at these songs and I'm trying not to read anything into the new songs. But that was a strident single, and you were emphatic about it. There was no metaphors. There was no hiding behind anything. You were meeting somebody of the past there. Do we have the same sort of texture with some of these new tunes?
I think so. I think there's a tune on the new album called Marie, and if Blowhard Nation was a sort of a wake-up call to all of us, me included, because when I wrote that, I really wasn't anticipating that the man was going to get elected. Trump was going to get elected. I was writing from almost a humorous place when I wrote that song, and then what happened afterwards, and in the last 2 years since that song was released, we can all see. But it's a pretty large pretty large change. And so Marie is definitely on the other side of that change and coming. It's a conversation with a woman, a fictitious woman named Marie, but it's very much me trying to talk to her and her talking to me, and it's all post that. My feeling is that I'm frankly amazed that women are still willing to even talk to men, especially white men, and that political change that has gone on is such a big part of that.
Yeah, I can't carry that guilt. I'm afraid I've done my very best. It's too, as Van Morrison would say, it's too late to stop now. I just try to be the best person I can possibly be.
Yeah.
And actually, it's interesting. Marie is part of this album, as is Christine. Love that song, and Sunny as well. So we'll take them one at a time in just a moment. But sure. I want to talk about the title track, "The Unconquerable Past." You say it's a reflection of where you are now, and perhaps where we are as a people, as a human race. Explain that, will you?
Yeah, well, my ma is 85, 86, and I'm just aware or talking with her about how, as one gets older, you start to look backwards. There's always a sense of look forward, the future, and then as you get a little bit more mature, people start saying things to you like, be here now. It's not about the past or the future. It's about being here now. That's sort of the Zen way of looking at it. But I'm realizing that as you get older, you start to look backwards more. And things that happened yesterday don't matter as much as things that happened 40 years ago. And so inevitably, I'm starting to look back. And this song on a very sort of superficial level is looking back. One could argue that politically, we've entered new uncharted waters. You could argue the same with the environment, and a very sort of macro level with the music industry. There were things that we did 40 years ago that are gone now, and some of the baby has definitely been thrown out with the bathwater. So in that song, I'm kind of looking backwards and trying to articulate the idea that there are things from the past that we have let go of that will, in fact, come and kick us in the arse.
Stephen Fearing is on the line. Actually, he's sitting in his car. He's not bothering anybody. As a matter of fact, there's a new album available, coming. So what is the release date on this album?
It was going to be November 8th, but I think it's going to be November 15th now because we had some... this album, the whole thing has happened so quickly, so this has been a minor hiccup, but just a slight delay in production.
Okay. I do know that they're going to launch it in Winnipeg, or have you changed that date as well?
No, that's happening for sure. And Scott Nolan, who co-produced the album with me, we figured that would be a really fun place to do this show. And
one of the reasons why Winnipeg plays such a role in you and performing there is that most of the musicians that you were in the studio with were from Winnipeg.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the whole thing was, it's one. I went to visit Scott Nolan over a year ago. I was passing through, and I went in to visit with him, and he gave me a copy of Will Prince's Earthly Days album, which is such a beautiful album. And I listened to it for the next couple of days as I was driving through the prairies. And the thing that really got to me was just how little a mark Scott left on the record. He did that wonderful thing that some producers can do, which is just get out of the way and let that voice happen. And so it really inspired me to want to work with him. And I've never worked with him before. We entertained the idea of writing together, but suddenly we decided we were going to make a record. And so that meant, very much being on Scott's turf. And he's got this little studio in his backyard called the Song Shop. He made the calls, put the band together, and kind of ran the ground operation for me. And, that was, so it's very much a Winnipeg feel.
Christine, this great rock and roll track, what was the original riff lifted from? Because it's a beautiful 50s riff.
It is Moe's House in Parson Farm. It was. I've loved that riff for so long. It's a piano riff, and I suddenly realized I can play it on the guitar. Like I figured out how to play it, and it's just a really nice variation on the old dun 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 rock and roll blues riff, 3-note riff. It's a slightly different variation on it, and it lifts the whole thing in a way that I love. So when I figured it out on the guitar, away we went. And Christine, it's just one of those rock and roll names, you know. It could either be Stephen King's Car, or it's just got that ring to it. Right combination of vowels and consonants, and happens to be my wife's name. So away we went.
Christy, my rodeo queen. Christy, my rodeo queen. She got a heart full of soul, a soul full of gasoline. I was sleeping on the couch, I was eating humble pie, until I learned to see the things she say and with her eye. Christy, my rodeo queen. She got a heart full of soul and a soul full of gasoline. My woman's like a tea bag, you throw her in the pot, but you never know how strong she gets until the water's hot. Christine, my rodeo queen. She got a heart full of soul, a soul full of gasoline. Oh, she's my coffee, I tell you why. Enough caffeine to make a dead man fly. When I think about the gals that I knew before she got the real fireworks, start the Third World War. Christine, 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 Christine. She got a heart full of soul, a soul full of gasoline. All right. I tell you why, enough caffeine to make a dead man fly. I think about the gals that I knew before she got the real fireworks, start the Third World War. Christine, 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 Christine. She got a heart full of soul, a soul full of gasoline. She loved me like a river, she loved me like the rain. I was dying in the desert like a dog on a chain. Christine, my rodeo queen. She got a heart full of soul, a soul full of gasoline. She got a heart full of soul and a soul full of gasoline. A heart full of soul, a soul full of gasoline. I have 3 titles down, but I wonder which one is going to jump out at you. Immigrant Song, that's with an E, Immigrant Song, No Country, which is the last track, or Break Our Mother's Hearts. Which one?
Immigrant Song is an interesting one. I mean, all 3 of them have a story.
I know.
Immigrant Song is, I actually wrote that with Andy White quite some time ago, and I felt that the song really hadn't connected with that many people. I mean, we live in such a strange age now that maybe it's not that different musically than it ever was, but my sense is that one puts out an album and it reaches this small group of people that are, you know, if you're lucky, you have a group of fans that buy your records. But in terms of the wider world, it's very limited. And with Fearing in White, this erstwhile project of mine with Andy White, great songwriter from Belfast, the pool was even smaller. And I felt that we had written a song that that meant a lot to me. Andy and I talked about Immigrant Song and how we wanted to see if we could get it to Christy Moore, and it was just one of those songs that we felt had a bigger life, and it never was realized. And so I thought, well, to hell with that. I'm going to re-record it, because it's one of those few songs of Fearing in Whites that I felt like I could actually do on my own. A lot of them were real duet songs, and it felt like it fit in the album. You know, there's a lot of songs on the record. Born to Break Our Mother's Heart is the first line, is I left my hometown for salvation.
Yeah.
There's quite a lot of that sort of having to leave where you're from, you know, to get away from things, to grow, to learn. You know, there's quite a bit of that on this record, and Someone Else's Shoes would be another good example of, you know, that kind of learning to see what other people are going through. An Immigrant Song, given again the political climate of our country, even though the song is very much about an Irish, it's very biographical in a way, Irish guy in North America, yet it's sort of the only way that I can really relate to the idea of being an immigrant to this country. You know, what it must be like to come to another country and leave the place that you're from, that you love, but there's no room for you there anymore. There's no place for you there anymore.
Stephen, let me ask you about Stay With Me. I marked that one almost immediately as it went by. Tell me about that song and where it came from.
Sure. It's, I grew up in Ireland I left in 79. So the punk era was happening, and what I was listening to on the radio was that whole thing, songs that started at, they basically, the amps were turned up to 11 and they finished in the same place. There was this sort of, it just hit the ground running and went. And that's where I was coming from. But the actual lyric of the song is, again, it relates to Marie. It relates to the idea of a couple, man and woman if you want, but in these troubled times, in this sort of chaos that's going on around us, where it's very easy to sort of lose yourself and lose your partner, lose your marriage in the chaos of the world around us. There's a lot of chaos going on, like serious chaos.
Well, you can imagine, Stephen, you can imagine if you married someone down the States, for example, and then and here we are, you're sitting across from each other at the table, and one of them is wearing a Trump hat and one is not.
Yeah.
The families are just being torn apart.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, very much. And I think that, I think that there's more than just the sort of the politics going on, but I see a lot of pressure on people. I see people going through a lot of heavy stress things, and the idea of saying to somebody that you love, you can count on me. Very much that referencing an old song again, Stand By Me, which I've always loved. I think that Stand By Me is kind of a perfect song. Certainly, I've looked under the hood of that song a bunch and thought about that song a lot. And the idea of just saying to somebody, you can count on me. I'll do my best to be there for you. That's what that song's about.
Stay with me. The water is so wide, and we're sailing over dark and hollow times. Stay with me, the two of us inside, in the melody, in the rhythm and the rhyme. And when the night is screaming in the street outside, and the wind blows up on a full moon tide, and the levee breaks, and the lightning splits the trees, and the stranger's curse really gets to you, and the ones you love become strangers too. And if you were drowning, you could count on me. So stay with me. The water is so wide, and we're sailing over dark and hollow times. Oh, stay with me. The two of us inside. soul is aching from what someone said, and a heavy heart wrestles a heavy head. You've been looking through the looking glass darkly, and the world is too much with you, and a red hand harvests a bitter root, and if you were falling, you could call on me. So stay with me, the water is so wide, and we're sailing over dark and hollow times. Oh, stay with me, the two of us inside, and the melody and the rhythm and the rhyme, and the melody and the rhythm and the rhyme, and the melody.
Stephen, do you ever question, like many artists and many songwriters do, whether you can ever pull another song from your soul? Do you have those moments?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. And I've this sort of new method of writing that I seem to have stumbled on with Every Soul's a Sailor, which is basically just put yourself in a room and say to everybody around you, I'm going to be away for a couple of weeks. This is what I got to do. There's always a point, always, in fact, several points where I'm in that space and everybody's agreed to leave me alone, and I'm writing and I'm thinking, I don't know if I've got anything more, but there's always more, because what I'm realizing is it's just the act of writing and playing, and the word play is really important, in the sense of playing a guitar, but also playing and having fun. That's what it's all about. So as long as that component is there, something new is going to come out of it, and it always seems to.
And here's what I like about the way you approach your music, and that is you come into the studio, it's not absolutely nailed down. The song is not absolutely nailed down. It's open, it's breathing, and there's room for those other artists in the room to bring what they hear to it, and then all of a sudden the song takes on its own life. Yeah.
Well, it's I've certainly been guilty earlier on when I was I was so much older then. I'm younger than that now, but when I was so much older then, just being so worried that you had to have everything so together, and it's more a lack of confidence really, but in having it so together, you can basically polish all the beautiful rough edges off. And that's one thing that I have very, very much learned from my hairy brethren, Colin Linden and Tom Wilson, is the warts are actually the things that make it the most interesting. And I mean, it's an old cliche, and it's really true. So if there's a way to keep those things, to keep the roughness and the looseness of it, right up until the very, very end, until you have to print, that's the thing to do.
The album artwork is fantastic. It's like an old Miles Davis record.
It's exactly right. It's the color scheme of Sketches of Spain. That's exactly it.
Fantastic.
Yeah. What I've realized is there's only so much you can do with photography. I love photography, but getting into graphics meant that you can put the character of Stephen Fearing in all these different situations that would either look really corny or cost a hell of a lot of money to pull off if we did it with photography, and thereby breathe some new life into. I mean, Terry, you know how it is. It's me. I'm writing songs, and then I go in the studio and I record them, and then at some point I have to somehow put this layer of spin or gloss or whatever it is. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I have to portray it in a way that says this is a new thing. And part of it has been fascinating for me touring through Europe. I see a lot of guys that I do shows with, double bills. Say I'm playing a gig in Holland in some club, and I'm on a double bill with a guy, and Americana star, and this younger performer will show up, and I'm not making fun of them at all, but there's the boots and the hat and the jeans and the whole deal, and it's Americana writ so two-dimensionally.
Yeah.
And yet they're singing and playing songs. They're singer-songwriters. There's no two ways around it. They may have an old Gibson and all the accoutrement of being Americana, but it's the same thing. It's just as Tom would say, it's a same old circus with a brand new clown, and and so we do need to find different ways to present ourselves. And I realized graphics is such a great way to do that. It's such a great way to say, this is me. This, I'm even like the polka dot shirts there. I made sure there was a few things that you could see. You've only got the front cover, so the rest of the artwork has a little bit more detail, but it's very much taking me into the realm of graphics and graphics sort of like cartoon books.
Damn fun.
Yeah, really fun, really fun.
And speaking of warts, Tom co-wrote with you on one of these tracks. Was it was it Christine?
No, he wrote on Born to Break Our Mother's Heart, which is, we got together something that I really had wanted to do for a long time, which was get Tom and Colin and I together to write for the new Blackie record, King of This Town, which is out in January. January. And, of course, he and I got together a couple of days before Colin showed up and did some writing, and that song came out of it. It was one of those songs that we had sort of a whole lot of kind of mid-tempo-y ballads, and when we were down in the studio, it didn't get picked, and I looked at it and went, oh my God, that song's way too good to not use, because sometimes you write with somebody and that's the whole life of the song. It's just you wrote it and then that's it. And I thought, I'm not letting that one go. That's
Sure.
a song that I really love. So,
okay.
And it fits again with the album. So
can we talk Blackie for just a second? Blackie and the Rodeo Kings.
Sure, with pleasure. Yeah.
So the name of the album is King of This Town.
King of This Town.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did the album come together quickly? Was it a revelation?
Yeah, very much. All of the above. We wrote the songs. My wish list was that we would get together and write together as a trio, which is something we've only done once or twice before. And then the second wish list was that we would record it together and live together. So Colin has broken ground and built in his backyard a 1,000-square-foot studio with cathedral ceilings, like a proper, beautiful space. I think he's already recorded Keb Mo there and Lucinda Williams.
That's right.
And so we flew down in February. He brought 2 outside engineers in to work on the session, one for a couple of days and one for a few more, and gave himself the freedom of just being a member of the band for most of the time. We brought Kenny Pearson with us from Woodstock, Ontario, who was a really good friend of our late dear departed Richard Bell, and worked with Richard in Janis Joplin's.
God bless Richard Bell.
Yeah, and so Kenny and Richard worked together. Kenny plays B3 and piano beautifully, and he came in, and we invited a guy named Jim Hoke, who played on my records. Well, Jim is a multi-instrumentalist, lives in Nashville, ridiculously talented fellow. Used to play sax with NRBQ.
No.
Just a lovely. He fit in so quickly, I couldn't believe it. It was like an old friend that had been away for a long time.
Is it dangerous to ask the shape of the album, what kind of album it is? Honestly,
I think this is going to sound like hype number 101, but I don't know if there's the best song that we've ever written on this record, but I do think that this is the best record we've ever made, because we're getting back to the idea of recording together, mixing it quickly, the whole thing. There was no sort of, a year-long gap in between recording the tracks and then having all the guests on, which is the last couple of records have been very much about trying to get guests on and make that concept work. And the other thing worth mentioning about this record is, and this is really weird, but it's our 25th anniversary next year.
Sure.
And The youngest member of the band is 56. That's me, and I will be 57. And yet we just got signed to a major label, which is totally backwards. But that's what's happening. So we are going to sort of see how that works. What does a major label do in this climate of streaming, etc., and all that? So I'm very curious to see how it's going to work. But it will be on Warner Canada. It will be called King of This Town, and it will be coming out officially released in January.
Did you mention the word Ryman Theater?
Yeah. I'm hoping in January that the plan is we're all going to meet at Collins Place again in Nashville and rehearse for the upcoming tour, because we want to basically have a set list of old material and new material and be able to switch it maybe from night to night. So sort of put a set list of 30, 40 songs under our belt that we can play comfortably. So we're going to rehearse, and we're hoping that whilst we're in Nashville, we can go and play the Grand Ole Opry, which I believe is at that period of time is going to be at the Ryman. So I don't know if that's going to come off or not, and I don't want to jinx anything, but that is our hope.
Well.
Yeah.
What a journey, and it's not done yet. Holy smoke.
Yeah. I know it's next year's going to be a banner. It's going to be a rockin' year. I'm very excited, and some people would say, "What are you doing, putting out 2 records at the same time?" But that's just the way it works.
Well, it's been done before. It hasn't hurt careers. LeRoy Stagger put out 2 in about 3 months of each other. It's ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
And both of them got played. I'm playing the hell out of them. Well, congratulations on this music.
Thank you.
I can't wait. I can't wait to hear it live. Bring a piano player with you if you can, because I love the piano parts. All right.
Yeah. That would be a beautiful thing.
All right.
Yeah. All right, man.
Thank you, Stephen. Well done.
Thanks so much.
Outside the world is crying, breaks my heart in two, 'cause no one is an island, better walk in someone else's shoes, 'cause we don't really see each other. We don't even trust the truth. It's the old divide and conquer, eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Heaven help the privileged ones who never felt the blues.
in conversation with Stephen Fearing about his new album, The Unconquerable Past. It came out yesterday, November the 15th. Stephen will be doing dates. We'll give you dates on our website, mulliganstew.ca. And then we can expect that noise from the east. Blackie and the Rodeo Kings will gear up the tour truck and get going as they release their new album, Kings of This Town, in February. They are celebrating their 25th anniversary, Blackie and the Rodeo Kings, all of 2020. They'll be on the road. They'll be playing dates as solo artists and dates as Blackie, maybe in the same town and at the same time. Next week, Marcus King of the Marcus King Band, the new guitar gunslinger in town. But he's more than that. That's why we're talking to him. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing to Mulligan Stew, the podcast, music, film, food, and wine. More film coming, more wine coming. Thank you.